Hi, my name is Gracia M. Gable, and together with my group, we are going to discuss the international political economy. Before defining the concept of IPE, there's a few words that we need to take as a warning. First, there is no universal agreement on how IPE should be defined. It implies that in defining the concept is not just simple or straightforward as one might expect or want. Second, definition is important because through definition, we are able to know what to include and to leave out in our analysis. In other words, definition within the given area of inquiry will tell us the concept which we're going to consider legitimate, what matter, what is relevant within our study, and it tell us how it's supposed to be studied. Based on several important but unclear assumptions, IPE defines that it is the study of the tension between markets, where individuals engage in self-interested activities, and state, where those same individuals undertake collective activities. There are two significant subjects in IPE. First is the market and the states. The market composed of self-interested individuals with their firms, and the state, which is the primary political institution in modern international system. Moreover, IPE defined as a field of inquiry that studies the ever-changing relationship between government, business, and social forces, and it has two central dimensions: the political and economical dimension. Political dimension accounts for the use of power by different actors, including individuals, domestic group, states, international organization, non-government organization, and the transnational corporation. They are the ones who make decisions on how to allocate the intangible and tangible things. When we say tangible, these are the money and the products, and while the intangible are the services and the innovation. Economic dimension deals on how scarce resources will be distributed among individuals, groups, and nation states. Today, markets are not just an abstract construct that settle demand and supply. Markets are always such more. The market can also be thought of a driving force that shapes human behavior. Conversely, there are three theoretical perspectives in international political economy. These are the liberalism, Marxism, and mercantilism. Economic nationalism is also known as neo-mercantilism. It began in 1650 when British government pursued policy of mercantilism in international trade. Its main objective is to increase nations' wealth by increasing export, by decreasing imports through tariff, and etc. It said that a nation must export more in order to gain economic strength. Marxism was conceptualized and developed by professor, economist, and sociologist Karl Marx, based on analysis of economic development of 19th century. Its objective is to bring classless society based on common ownership of the means of production, distribution, and exchange. The main concept of Marxism is an equal capitalist economic structure is the main driving force behind all social conditions. Worker revolution is inevitable due to exploitation.
Economic liberalism is a political and economical philosophy based on strong support for a market economy and private property in the means of production. It is associated with free markets and private ownership of capital assets. In economic system, economic liberalism is organized on individual lines, meaning that the greatest possible number of economic decisions are made by individuals or households rather than collective institutions.
In the era of Middle Ages to the end of 18th century, saw a number of key changes in technology, ideas, and practices. European explorers decided to find opportunities in America, Asia, and Africa so that they can exchange good people and tie the colonies and the home states together. Also, a Scottish economist, philosopher, and author, it is considered the father of modern economics. Adam Smith believed that government should limit its activities to administer justice, enforcing private property rights, and defending the nation against aggression. In terms of developing through individual rational action, the rationality assumption assumes that all individuals under consideration are expected to be rational actors, making rational choice themselves, rational-based theory to achieve the very best results for themselves and their own self-interest. On the other hand, another economic theory practices comes in. It is called mercantilism from the 16th century that promoted governmental regulation of the nation's economy for the purpose of augmenting state power at the expenses of rival national powers. Company user practices of many governments at the time emphasized the importance of balance of payment surpluses in trade with other countries and not to end it often promotes in exchange of policy of autarky. Jean-Baptiste argued that states should accumulate gold and silver as well as building in a strong central government. Same goes to Alexander Hamilton, where he made the similar arguments in the United States. Meanwhile, in the late 19th century to World War I, the expansion of colonialism increases during the same period. The states of Europe industrialization is fulfilled by technological changes. Economic links in global trade were followed by political and cultural domination by industrial states. Later on, radicalism emerged in this period as a response to the excesses of the time. According to Karl Marx, radicalism attacked and inequalities of the time. Radicals argued conflicts of competition between groups, owners of wealth versus workers. This conflict can be also called as class conflict. Society was made up to two groups. Owners of the wealth can be also called bourgeoisie, while proletariat for the image of the workers. The hierarchy between bourgeoisie and proletariat cause a lot of pressure for expanding tensions and creates the seeds of destruction of the system as a whole. As the World War II ends, another most recent phase of internationalism occur.
The basis of contemporary international economy is in liberal perspective. Liberal economics is based on recognition that states differ in their resource endowments worldwide. Wealth is maximized if a state engage in international trade. David Ricardo stated in his theory that states should engage in international trade according to their comparative advantage. National currency should be bought and sold in free market system. In such a system of floating exchange rates, The market determines the value of one currency compared with other currency. Multinational corporations or MNCs play a key role as engines of economic growth. First, they act as the vanguard or the liberal economic order. Second, they have taken the integration of national economies beyond trade and money to include the internationalization of production. Further, liberal CMNCs are positive economic improvement driven through efficiency and MNCs promote efficiency. Moreover, MNCs perform many activities such as direct importing and exporting, making significant investments in a foreign country, buying and selling license in foreign markets, engaging in contract manufacturing and opening manufacturing facilities and foreign countries. MNCs choose to operate in international markets for various reasons, all of which are based in economics, but which are impacted by the political relations of the host state. Number 1. Reduce transport of the host state. Number 1. Reduce transport cost by moving production closer to customers. Number 2. Tax and license advantage from local government. Number 3. Find cheaper labor markets. Number 4. Obtain the services of foreign technical personnel. The international liberal economy may promote peace and suggest a basic set of policies, all based on a minimal involvement of government, which are the open markets, free trade and free flow of goods and services. On the other hand, international economics institutions' roles are the World Bank of stimulating economies. The World Bank was designed initially to facilitate reconstruction in the post-World War II Europe, while in the International Monetary Fund is for stabilizing economies. The task of the International Monetary Fund (IMF) was to stabilize exchange rates, and originally the fund established a system of fixed exchange rates. In addition, the GATT and the WTO is for managing trade. The General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade (GTT) enshrine important liberal principles: support of trade, liberalization, non-discrimination in trade, exclusive use of tariffs for protecting home markets, preferential access in developed markets to product from the South, support concept of national treatment of foreign enterprises. The GATT established a continual process of multilateral negotiation among these countries sharing major interest in the issue at hand. The agreements reached were expanded to all GATT participants.
There are three things that we need to remember on how the globalized economy works today: the international finance, the international trade, and the international development. In international finance, capital movements played a key role in the earlier phases of the development of the international political economy, and they continue to do so today. There are two ways in capital moves. First is the foreign direct investment, or FDI. It includes the building of factories and other facilities. Next is the portfolio investment, or PI. It includes the investments in the stocks and bonds of a country. Multinational corporations play a major role in the movement of capital, both in the form of FDI and in the form of PI. There are currently more than 60,000 multinational corporations employing 90 million people in the global economy. Of the largest 100 multinational corps, 90 are based in the United States, Europe, Japan, and a handful of developing states. On the other hand, critics from all perspectives realize that some states have more difficulty attracting private investment than others. Like, for example, the Africa. Africa receives only 8% of private capital. So, the World Bank has expanded its mission to include development lending to these countries. 2. Separate institutions within the World Bank were created to deal with these issues. First is the International Finance Corporation in 1956. It provides loans for the development of private enterprises in the developing countries. Next is the International Development Association in 1960. It provides capital to the poorest countries, usually in the form of interest-free loans. Also, we have the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency in 1988. It provides insurance against losses from events like expropriation, civil war, or conflict. Even with the expansion of World Bank programs, these efforts continue to decline as a proportion of total capital flows. In 1980s, financial flows accelerated due to the range of mechanisms. First, exchange rates were no longer fixed, so traders in currency exchange market and in the multinational corporations could capitalize on buying and selling currencies. Second, the market developed new financial instruments such as derivatives, which could be packaged and sold around the world. Third, new economic actors, sovereign wealth funds formed in capital surplus countries. And lastly, the economic liberalization has led to the emergence of offshore financial centers with low taxation and little or no regulation. In 1990s, Asian financial crises illustrate the possible outcomes of the globalization of finance.
And now, let's proceed to international trade. International trade is the exchange of goods and services between countries. Trading globally, it gives consumers and countries an opportunity to be exposed to products and services that not available in their own countries, or which be more expensive domestically. In international trade, we will encounter the importation, which means receiving products and services from another countries, and exportation, which means sending products and services to another countries. Moving on, let's now talk about how the international trade works today. Number 1, the goal of economic liberal thinking was to create a free trade system wherein there's no tariff, taxes, or duties on imports or quotas on exports. Number 2, for various reasons, leaders may want to protect their home markets. Because of too much importing products and services, local markets are being left behind. For example, here in the Philippines, foreign products are more dominant than the Filipino products. Number 3, the goal of post-World War II GATT or General Agreement on Traffic and Trade was to promote an international trade by lowering trade barriers. GATT accomplished this in a series of negotiating rounds dealing with issues such as tariff cuts, favorable treatment for developing countries. Final GATT round, the Uruguay round, covered new items such as services, intellectual property, and agriculture. In 1995, GATT became a formal institution, renaming itself as the World Trade Organization or WTO. There are two important procedures were initiated in WTO. Number 1, the Trade Policy Review Mechanism, which conduct periodic surveillance of trade practices of member states. The purpose of the Trade Policy Review Mechanism is to contribute to improve adherence by all members to rules, discipline, and commitments made under the multilateral trade agreement. In order to achieve the fullest possible degree of transparency, each member shall report regularly to the Trade Policy Review Body. Full report shall describe the trade policies and practices pursued by the member or member concerned, based on an agreed format to be decided upon by the Trade Policy Review Body. The second important procedure is the Dispute Settlement Body, designed as the authoritative panel to hear and settle trade disputes. The World Trade Organization can impose sanctions against violators and is more powerful than the other economic dispute resolutions arrangements. Dispute Settlement Body uses a special decision procedure known as reverse consensus or consensus against that make it almost certain that the panel recommendation in a dispute will be accepted. Here are the prominent cases example that the Dispute Settlement Body handled. Number 1, U.S. requirements for turtle excluder devices or shrimp turtle case. Number 2, the 2002 United States steel tariff. Number 3, U.S. exceptions to secondary broadcasting right. Number 4, European Union restriction on genetical food modified. And lastly, the European Union regulation on asbestos. Getting global participation in the World Trade Organization has proved a painstaking task. For example, China's accession to the World Trade Organization in 2001 required that it make commitments to move toward a market economy. We all know that China is a powerful country and can do and make whatever they want. But because they access the World Trade Organization, now they follow rules and regulations that the WTO imposed. And the same thing goes to Vietnam, which acceded in 2007, has made a similar commitments. Domestic groups and NGOs in many countries feel that the World Trade Organization is controlling the decision and degrading the welfare of individuals and is undermining labor and environmental standards. Because of the power that the World Trade Organization holds and its dominance, many are afraid and clueless to the futures that awaits to them.
Hi everyone, my name is Saname Elvio from BSIS 1-3 and our topic for today is international development. So, what is international development? International development is the pursuit of a better world for all through the elimination of poverty, discrimination, and injustice. So the most common framework to understand international development is found in United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So later I will discuss it one by one. So in September 2015, world leaders met in New York for the UN Sustainable Development Summit. At that summit, the world leaders officially adopted 17 Sustainable Development Goals, signifying a new era of partnership and collaboration to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure prosperity for all. So let's move on to 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So number 1 is no poverty. So economic growth must be inclusive to provide sustainable jobs and promote equality. So to end poverty, everyone should have basic health care, education, and security. So number 2 is zero hunger. So globally, 1 in 9 people are undernourished. This goal aims to end hunger. So number 3 is good health and well-being. Ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all the ages is essential to sustainable development. So number 4 is quality education. So the UN wants everyone to have access to inclusive, equitable, quality education. So number 5 is gender equality. So gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. Number 6 is clean water and sanitation. Clean, accessible water for all is an essential part of the world we want to live in. So, number 7 is affordable and clean energy. Energy is central to nearly every major challenge and opportunity. Number 8, so doesn't work and economic growth. Sustainable economic growth will require societies to create the conditions that allow people to have quality jobs. So, number 9 is industry. innovation, and infrastructure. Investments in infrastructure are crucial to achieving sustainable development. Number 10, reduce inequalities. To reduce inequalities, policies should be universal in principle, paying attention to the needs of disadvantaged and marginalized populations. So number 11, sustainable cities and communities. There needs to be a future in which cities provide opportunities for all, with access to basic services, energy, housing, transportation, and more. So number 12, responsible consumption and production. This goal aims to foster eco-friendly production, reduce waste, and boost recycling. And number 13, climate action. Climate change is a global challenge that affects everyone. And our urgent action is needed by regulating emissions and promoting renewable energy. Number 14, life below water. The aim is to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources. So number 15 is life on land. To stop degradation, we must preserve forest, desert, and mountain ecosystems. So number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. The aim is to inclusive societies with strong institutions that provide justice for all. And last is partnerships for the goals. If all countries are to achieve the goals, international cooperation is vital. And that's all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So, each year, a Sustainable Development Goal report is published by the UN Secretary General and provides an overview of the world's implementation efforts to date, with the latest UN data highlighting areas of progress and areas where more action needs to be taken to ensure no one is left behind. So let's move on to development work. So negative 24.3%. In 1990, about 35% of the global population lived in poverty. By 2013, that number was cut by more than half and had decreased to 10.7%. From 1990 to 2017, 1.1 billion were lifted out of extreme poverty. So next, 50%. From 1990 to 2016, there was a 50% drop in the proportion of undernourished people in developing countries from 23.3% to 12.9%. So next is 5.2 billion. In 2015, 5.2 billion people use safe drinking water services. Some 2.6 billion people have gained access to improved drinking water since 1990. So let's move on to the Doha Round. So the Doha Round is the latest round of trade negotiations among the WTO or World Trade Organization. It aims to achieve major reform of the international trading system through the introduction of lower trade barriers and revised trade rules. The work program covers about 20 areas of trade. The round is also known semi-officially as the Doha Development Agenda, as a fundamental objective is to improve the trading prospects of developing countries. So let's move on to the differences between the developed North and the developing South. So there are broadly two economic worlds that cut across the globe. So these are the global North and the global South. That while the global North represent the economically developed societies of Europe, North America, Australia, Israel, South Africa. The developed South represents the economically backward countries of Africa, India, China, Brazil, and Mexico. While global North countries are wealthy, technologically advanced, politically stable, and aging as their societies tend towards zero population growth. The opposite is the case with global South countries. While global South countries are agrarian-based, dependent economically and politically on the global North. The global North has continued to dominate and direct the global South in international trade and politics. So in liberal economic theory, trade liberalization is based on comparative advantage and is a key engine to economic growth. So, integration into the world economy has proven a powerful means for countries to promote economic growth, development, and poverty reduction. Over the past 20 years, the growth of a world trade has averaged 6% per year, twice as fast as world output, but trade has been a engine of growth for much longer. So let's move on to the World Bank. So the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, or IBRD, or the World Bank, uses its own system which divides all countries into six categories. So they are low income, middle income, upper middle income, and high income oil exporters, industrial market economies, and East European non-market economies. The first four groups include the 143 countries of the Third World, and the last two include the 29 so-called First and Second World nations. We have this system available to us with extensive data in machine-readable form. So let's move on to the Soviet Union. During the 1990s, the IMF worked closely with the World Bank to alleviate the debt burdens of poor countries. The initiative for heavily indebted poor countries was launched in 1996 with the aim of ensuring that no poor country faces a debt burden it cannot manage. In 2005, to help accelerate progress toward the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, or the MDGs, the HIPC initiative was supplemented by the Multilateral Debt Relief Initiative, or MDRI. So next is, what is Washington Consensus? Washington Consensus, it is a set of economic policy recommendations for developing countries and Latin America in particular that became popular during the 1980s. The term Washington Consensus usually refers to the level of agreement between the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, World Bank, and U.S. Department of the Treasury on those policy recommendations. All share the view, typically labeled neoliberal, that the operation of the free market and the reduction of state involvement were crucial to development in the global south. So nearly all the countries in the world have promised to improve the planet and the lives of the citizens by 2030. I think that's all for our topic, and thank you for listening.
Greetings everyone, I'm Paula Medjokito. Me and my other group mates will discuss the most influential national political economy systems in the world. So as we knew, political economy is the involvement or the intervention of government over private sectors or businesses. So going further, I will be discussing about the American system of market-oriented capitalism. The American political economy's primary purpose is to benefit consumers, while wealth creation or wealth distribution as a second importance. The abstract theory of America's economy was influenced by neoclassical model, which assumption rests on that markets are competitive. Where they are not competitive, competition should be promoted through antitrust and other policies. So later on, I will be discussing further about antitrust and other policies. So let's go on with the American economy system. One of the government job is looking after the economy. American's economy is a free enterprise system which business are owned by private sectors or an individual citizen. Even so, American economy system also considered as mixed system, for the government sets regulation for the private business and gives support as well. As an example, GPS, or Global Positioning System, which U.S. Army and U.S. Force, which are a government sector, paid a private company to create navigation system for locating troops over the world. Let's talk about support. So, the support given to a private business is called subsidy. This subsidy comes to a four phases, which are tax incentives, where business are allowed to pay less taxes. Next is credit, allows business to borrow money from the government at low interest rate, which if they borrow on a regular bank, they would have to pay higher interest rate. Another is service, provides information for business through conducting research study about the needs and wants of American or the public. Lastly is payment. Government is paying a private business that producing a goods or service that is necessity of a public. So laissez-faire, it is a neoclassical idea that there are such area where the government should not be involved or intervene. In late 1800s, business began to merge into huge corporations. These are monopolies, means they control the entire industry, which is a bad thing because they were the only company selling a particular product, so they are charging citizens unfairly high prices. As government intervention, they passed the first antitrust law, the Sherman Antitrust Law of 1890, made monopolies illegal. Antitrust laws are designed to promote competition and prohibit any type of monopoly power. Aside from antitrust laws, Congress created the Federal Trade Commission to enforce new laws that shall protect consumer safety and welfare. Consequently, to establishing of Food and Drug Administration and Consumer Product Safety Commission that inspect and test products through its safety standards. Aside from protecting consumers, FDC also created laws to protect workers' welfare, safety, and rights, such as for working place safety, wages, etc. Therefore, the neoclassical laissez-faire idea was diluted by the notion that the federal government had a responsibility to promote economic equity and social welfare. Hence, to the intervention of government to every private business. This showing the relationship of government to the economy of America's system of market-oriented capitalism.
For future, and it's allowed them to find new market share through due to globalization cultural that as discussed in Japan is one which has struggled to be balanced Western and protect Japanese culture. Treating of culture fading promotes protecting national identity. Third, globalization can improve human rights for social week in India. It is unequal between men and women. Men works outside of home and women have to housework. Also, men have power more than women in India. Therefore, women tend to build up their stress. Women should have equal rights to speak of opinion. Why women rights has not been accepted? It's because women don't even have ideas to get their rights of lack of information. Above all, opinions of acceptation of globalization is supported by three aspects which are economy, financial, and social development, diversification of lifestyle, and improvement of rights. Globalization can support activating society and also citizen lifestyle. Therefore, countries should be open-minded to promote globalization. Japanese system. When a country tries to be open-minded or accept new idea, it always faces pros and cons of its action. Globalization, for example, it's controversial topic for any country in Japan after World War II. We approve American ideas in Japanese law, and we have developed our country since then. Now, in India is one which has been Western day by day through their allots of opinion against globalization. Globalization is one of the best way to be promoted. There are three reasons develop our country, diversification of lifestyle and improve human rights. First, globalization can highly affect social economy and financial development now in India. New job opportunity for working in call center which uses English and deal with any question or complaint of purchaser not only condition of citizen lifestyle but is also country can be well activated. When the country only decide to be open-minded and foreign corporate with its firm, it can also provide people bunch of employment. People for building the firm gathering product which is necessary for building. People who works for trading can also have opportunity to be involved in project. People who works in corporate and more. Moreover, the condition around the building can be developed such as a public transport, restaurant, department store, and so on. Second, lifestyle of citizens can be diverse now in Japan. People studying abroad and speaking second language as increased to be open-minded leads people having a broad outlook on their life. Having broad outlook can also support people having idea or hope.
The German system of social market capitalism. The German economy has some characteristics similar to the American and Japanese system. But the difference of other ways is the one hand, Germany, like Japan, emphasizes the national savings and investment. Western Europe are significantly less interventionist than Japan. German economy is highly and dominated by alliances between major corporations and large private banks. The German system of political economy attempts balance, social concern, and market efficiency. The German system and private sector provide a highly developed system of social welfare. The German national system of political economy is representative of the corporatist or welfare state capitalism of continental Europe, which is capital organized labor and government corporate in management. And take note, the most important contribution of the German state to the economic success of their economy has been in their.
This chapter dealt with four major issues in the arena of international political economy. It first discussed the meaning and nature of international political economy, including the problems surrounding its conceptualization. Secondly, it analytically distinguished the different foundational and contemporary theoretical perspectives of IPE, such as mercantilism, liberalism, Marxism, structuralism, hegemonic stability theory, and the development state approach. Thirdly, it surveyed the most influential national political economy systems in the world. Finally, it identified and examined the core issues of international trade, international investment, and international finance, governing institution and governance process of international political economy.